Dom, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man. I haven't talked to you in a while.
I know. Glad to be joining you here.
Yeah, the last time I talked to you, it was sunny outside as we were organizing ourselves, and now it's rainy for me and
Yeah.
snowy for you.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, don't remind me.
You still have to get home after this. So I'm excited to have you on the show, and you're a busy guy, which is why it's taken us this long. But busy means good things in our business, right? You're
Typically, yes.
you're a really well-known remodeler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know what? Working in the remodeling industry and specifically design build is something I've been doing for almost the last decade. So I know I got a few tricks up my sleeve. I'm looking forward to sharing with some of your listeners. And yeah, appreciate you having me on the show, talking shop, talking remodeling, talking about anything to do with our business as far as sales and marketing, something I enjoy doing. So I'm looking forward
yeah.
to it.
I think that's going to be the takeaway message for a lot of our listeners. As you know, they're architectural mill workers, they are cabinet makers, they're people that are maybe dealers for different lines as well. But really, anybody in the wood trades industry could be listening to this. The the topic that you and I have laid out is one that I keep hearing back from people I talk to, and everybody wants to get inside the mind of somebody else. So what I'm hoping today is you share with us what it's like and how you see the world as a remodeler, as a renovator, so that my listeners understand how to do a better job marketing to you, doing a great job with you, getting more business from you, and really just building a stronger relationship with you. I don't mean you, I mean renovators and remodelers like you.
Correct.
So let's go. Let's let you talk. Ferris, tell us who you are and how you come to be on this call. What's your background, and give everybody that
Yeah.
sense.
So I've been blessed with an opportunity the last decade to build design build companies in multiple cities. And when I say design build, it's just I guess you can call it a niche of a general contractor or a niche of being a remodeler, whereas we do everything from A to Z. Along the ride, along the last decade, made lots of mistakes, cost us lots of money, but I like to think at least that we've learned from those mistakes, and we're here today. Just to give you an idea of the size of company, we do about $20 million annually, and we employ close to 100 contractors and staff members. So we do a large volume of projects. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to contribute you guys some information as far as getting in the mind of a remodeler and getting to understand what that looks like a little bit. Because I truly believe when expectations are set, it makes for an easier way to manage a relationship.
Mhm.
If you're a cabinet maker and I'm a remodeler, if you understand me and where I'm coming from, it makes it a little bit easier for you
Yeah.
to deal with some of the tough stuff, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's why I've been so excited to have you on the show, because there's two things in life, right? There's pleasure and pain. And so today I want to find out how can we, how the pleasure side, how can we make it easy and pleasurable to work with us? And then what's the painful side? What are the
Right.
warnings you can give us? Because we've all made mistakes. It, it just happens. Sometimes they're on purpose, and sometimes they're just by habit. We keep making the same mistakes. We don't see it, but then that really great contractor like your company suddenly dries up. We don't know why. We're still
Right.
producing what we think is a great product, but we're not dealing with the top contractors. So that's what I'm hoping we get from you. So tell us a little bit about your experience and history working with our trade, our industry of cabinetry and joinery, and even on the install side.
Naturally, like any maybe cabinet maker will tell you, they've had great experience working with remodelers and bad experiences, and same goes for me. I've had great experiences and I've had bad experiences, and I'm hoping what I'm going to share with you guys today is going to give you a little bit more insight to why was it a good experience and why was it a bad experience, so you can do a little bit more of the good and do a little bit less of the bad.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I think it's important to know. I mean, it's going to sound a lot like, okay, well, you want us to follow all these things, but what's in it for us, really, right? And hopefully, what that looks like is a long-term relationship with a long-term business,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times, I know, a lot of times it's easy to forget about the long term when you're dealing with the crap of the short term, right? When you're in that tunnel vision and you're really trying to get out of this one project and you're huffing and screaming and possibly hurting a long-term relationship because of this tunnel vision that we're in. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to give a macro view of kind of like what the long-term relationship should look like to be able to benefit everybody.
Yeah, it's an interesting way that you're positioning this, because there are times when I'm dealing with people in this industry, clients in this industry, and I ask, who's your client? They'll say, oh, it's the Smith people, you know, at this house, and we're installing cabinets. Well, where did you get that deal from? Oh, from this renovation contractor. Okay, so when you're done with the Smith house, when is the Smith people going to buy from you again? Well, our products are lifetime guaranteed. Nothing should happen for 20 years. Okay, well, that's good, but that's not your client. That's the project. The client is the designer, GC, renovator who brought you in.
Exactly. And sometimes it becomes really easy to lose sight of that when there's conflicts that are happening right now, right? And so I mean, we could just jump right in it.
Let's do it.
And I'll tell you guys kind of like, you know, one of the big epiphanies that I had about a year or two ago was that I had to stop working with the big companies. So the big cabinet manufacturers that, you know, mass produce cabinets and would ship them to you and pay somebody minimum wage to install them just did not work out well for us. Price point was great, service was awful. And in my business, service is everything. Honestly, if I were to even put service above quality, it might even take that top spot.
Wow.
People want for you to communicate to them, let them know when things are happening, and being able to keep them in the loop, but also being professional. They don't want you installing their cabinets and having a guy, you know, having to smoke while he's installing the cabinets, or, you know, or whatever unprofessional thing they can do. And you can imagine, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
So when we made the transition from big cabinet maker, okay, big company cabinet maker, to boutique cabinet maker, mom and pop almost style, it became night and day. It went from our most troublesome construction division. Troublesome.
Wow.
It went from well, because cabinets, people are, you know, at the end of the day, even if they're paying a lower price point, call it 7, 8, 9 grand, it's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you've got a guy installing them, but he doesn't even look well put together and he's not conducting himself right and he's spitting on the floor, well, believe it or not, that action is reflective on the cabinets.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all they can remember. Right. And the fact the cabinets, for the most part, are a huge focal point of the kitchen and possibly of the whole entire renovation.
Yeah.
So when we switched to mom and pop boutique cabinet maker, it went from our most troublesome line item to our best line item. And when I try to really think about why, and when I've had a chance to really reflect, I realized that when the owner is the same guy building them as the guy installing them and putting that love in on the production and on the install, it makes a huge difference. And you know what? When I switched to boutique, it didn't cost me less. As a matter of fact, it cost me 50% more. But now the experience is better. Referrals are there. And you know what? Like the time length of my renovations went down, because when people lose confidence in you, and especially like right in the middle when the cabinets are being installed, they're gonna drag you out throughout the whole remodel.
Yeah. Everything becomes a question.
Everything becomes a question. Whereas one of the reasons why I made that change was actually because my good friend owns this boutique cabinet making company. Like he comes from like a family where his dad did it for 30 years, and like he didn't even go to school, and he's been in the cabinet shop since he was like 12, and you know, now he's 30 something, and now he runs the whole shop, and you know, like I can tell you that like it made a world of a difference. So, you know, really when it kind of goes back to, okay, well, what's in the remodeler's mind? What's in the renovator's mind? I think it's important to keep in mind, guys, that like, you know, everybody's got a tough gig, but the remodeler's got a real tough gig. He is always under the gun. Always under the gun. You know, cabinet makers, you know, for them, and I don't want to downplay what cabinet makers do. My goodness, like, you know, it's unbelievable craft. It's you know, it's definitely a skill to be proud of. But you know what? You're going in there and you're installing cabinets. It might take you a week. It might take you 2 weeks. But you know, the remodeler's in there for 3, 4, 5 months, depending on the project.
You're
right?
living with these people. Yeah.
And we're always under the gun. So, you know, forgive us when we're kind of like trying to rush you in there and trying to get you out of there as soon as possible, because you know what? We've got the husband, the wife, the city inspector, the engineer, our bosses, and everybody else trying to get us to push. So I don't think, for the most part, price point is the biggest difference between whether a modeler is gonna want to work with you or not. Maybe initially, and maybe that's your foot in the door. But the biggest difference, if I was to name one thing you can do to make sure that you have constant work coming from this renovator or the GC, is just take more work off his plate. You know, do not add more challenges on his plate. You know, if you're having a challenge because the wall is crooked or because, you know, maybe the plumbing's off a little bit, work with them, try to figure out solutions. If you can figure it out on your own, amazing, you know, because believe it or not, you will earn points with this remodeler. And I know that my guys tend to lean on contractors or trades that make their job a lot easier. Because
I think it's just human nature, right?
It's human nature. You know, if they've got like 100 things to do in a day, if you can take one thing off their plate, well, you know what, then you know, they're going to want to keep working with you.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that you talked about cabinetry as a line item. And we're all guilty of this. I'm guilty of it, and I think we all are. Cabinetry is just a line item. It's just another thing. You've got plumbing, you've got tiling, you've got, like you said, inspectors, you got somebody else outside doing the drain tile, and you got a roofer. Like, there's so many line items. We're part of that package. And it was interesting when you said that, a reminder that even though we think our world is all cabinets, it's the focal point of the kitchen, it's the feature, but it's just a line item.
Yeah, and forgive me for that. You know, like I'm not saying
it that way. I'm saying I think it's a good reminder for us to remember that we're part of the whole picture.
Exactly,
right?
And that's exactly it, right? And so it's like, if you're dealing with an angry site supervisor or foreman or project manager or GC or owner or whoever it is, just keep in mind they've probably been in this project already for 2 months, and they're dealing with, you know, a frustrated homeowner, because of really, you know, not because of something specifically they've done, but simply because of the circumstances of renovations. And when you realize that these are circumstances of, when you realize that there's circumstances of renovations, that means they are to be expected every time. You know, and it's not because the GC or the remodeler is unorganized, and it's not because they're bad people or bad contractors or whatever. It's the circumstances of the industry. And naturally, if you can imagine, people are paying a lot of money, and they've got random people working inside their home, you know, banging away at the walls, creating, you know, drywall dust everywhere. And the people that are paying all this money don't get anything tangible. You're not like walking into a dealership, buying a car and driving away with it. You don't get to see the final product until the last 5%. So you naturally have a lot of pressure being put on you from the clients and everywhere else. So I think it's really important that cabinet makers get a little bit of a glimpse of what that world's like. And then maybe once they realize, okay, you know what, I got to come in here and I got to be more of a team player. And you know what, it's not one-sided. Of course, the remodeler and the GC's got to be a team player, and not everybody's a team player. But once we all realize we're on the same team and we have a mutual goal of getting in, getting out, getting paid, then I feel like a bit of an epiphany can happen there. And I feel like the remodelers are going to want to work with these guys a lot more.
So I've got people listening right now who want to do more business with remodelers. They want to do more business and they want to do better business. But let's start with more business. if I want to introduce myself and start doing work with a GC, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general, how should I approach that? I'm not your guy right now. I'm not your go-to guy, but how do I get to you? And then what do I say or do so that you know that I can actually complete the job and I'm your new go-to person?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, if I'm going to reflect back here, so there's two cabinet makers that we work with.
Mm.
And actually, I looked up some of the numbers. In one of my offices, we gave one of the guys 400 grand worth of business last year. And that's the guy that's my friend. So he's a childhood friend. So we're the relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I realized how we acquired our other cabinet maker, my project manager in his former job used to work with this guy. And he said that this guy's amazing and he's got great service. So really it comes back to relationships, right? So networking, establishing relationships, but then maintaining relationships. So because I had a relationship with a personal friend, he came on board. Our cabinet maker number 2 had a prior relationship with my project manager at his former business, and it's obvious that he impressed him, so he brought him over with him.
Right.
And I think it revolves back to, so it starts with the relationship, but I think the relationship only goes so far. After that, you need to be able to make the lives easier of these remodelers. And I mentioned to you, when we made the switch from big kitchen manufacturers to boutique, like we were paying double the price.
Yeah.
We are now paying double the price. So like my cabinet allowances, so we give our clients allowances, budgets, right? They went from 7-8 grand for cabinets to 15 and 20 grand. But there's a trade-off, right? And the trade-off is they're paying more, but we're getting great service and better quality.
Yeah. And ultimately we're all trying to take care of the customer in the end. The house we're installing, the house or the place we're installing it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, the project is going to be measured based on, the cabinets. It's not necessarily on the install of the countertops, right? Or not necessarily on the floor tile, but literally, the quality and the service and, the love that went into building these cabinets.
Yeah. The people in this trade really do love what they do. They really do. And one of the things that we say on this podcast all the time is to remember that what we build is the last thing people see before they go to bed and the first thing they see when they wake up.
Right.
That's the impact. We've got people here listening who make the beds.
Right.
They actually make the beds that people sleep on, like Murphy beds and custom furniture, or they make the side table, and they might do the countertops as well. Like they are built right into that person's life. And so, of course, they love what they do because they take pride in knowing that they're impacting people that much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't believe that anymore. I think, once the remodeler and, the cabinet maker or the mill worker have this great relationship, then it makes it a lot easier to work together and get more business. So as an example, we got this one project that has 50 grand worth of millwork, but she's a super picky client and really wanted to see high-end designs. So we have designers on staff, but not the super high-end millwork kind of designers. So my cabinet maker actually has somebody that he uses, and he invested money to have this designer design really high-end millwork for our client before we even got the project. So now our relationship's so tight that he knows he's ready to invest a little bit as well too to gain this business. And now we're essentially business partners. We're not necessarily, it's not just a GC trade relationship. We're business partners.
Yeah. So that's a challenge for some people listening because they're going to say, how do I build a relationship? And so maybe I'll have to do a little bit more education on this podcast and through my blog and website, how to build relationships with people, which is really the selling and marketing process. And some people right now didn't want to hear that, but it's true.
Right.
I've got to find a way to get through to you. I've got to be able to show value both ways. And then I have to be able to prove that value, hopefully by doing a job and doing it well. I like the way you brought that up. I'm going to have to loop back to that myself and how we can develop that relationship.
Yeah. And you know what? We now use the boutique cabinet maker model as part of our sales pitch. You know, it's hey, let's go book a meeting at my cabinet maker shop so you can see
Oh, okay.
building them, and you'll see the owner at your home installing them. You don't want anything else. Trust me. And so when I say business partner, now we're literally invested in each other to not just complete projects, but also to receive projects.
Right.
Like me, I mean, sure, me and my cabinet maker are good friends, but like it's to the point where I've offered him space for free at my trade booth, at my trade show booth, if he wanted to. You know, like it's literally like, you know, we go for lunch, you know, every other week. Like it's literally, you become business partners.
There's, you know, there's something to be said there that you guys have also worked towards that. And I think everybody listening is thinking, how do I get to that level with the renovators and the general contractors in my area? And the question is, you have to think about doing it and then go do it. It's very easy to turn back to your machine and go, I'm just going to keep doing more work, just building good cabinets, and people will come and find me. I'm sorry, my friend, they don't.
Right.
They don't. You got to get out there, network, you know, join your local chamber of commerce and go to business meetings. And even more importantly, go to meetings where you don't think that it's going to be full of a bunch of people asking for leads. Leads meetings is not where you get leads.
Right.
You want to get relationships. And so go to just the things you could get these kind of relationships watching your kids' hockey, football, or soccer game.
Right.
You got to develop them, and you got to then follow through on it.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So building that relationship is the first step in the door, first, you know, step into the door, and then really what you're going to have to do is, you know, if you're able to make their life easier, if you're able to make them look good in front of your client, that's worth gold, right?
Give me an example of that. How can a cabinet maker make you look good?
You know, I mean, there's many ways, right? As soon as the clients reflect on how beautiful their kitchen looks. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your cabinet maker that put it together, right? Yeah. It's not necessarily us, right? Sure, we brought them in here, but at the end of the day, it's your cabinet maker, and clients will often say that Ottawa General Contractors, as an example, built this kitchen, but we all know that it was our cabinet maker, right? So, I mean, but you know, the same goes in the other perspective, that if they did a bad job, it reflects on us too, right?
Well, I think what you're talking about there is be willing to give praise. When the homeowner walks up to me as the cabinet maker, as an example, says, "You guys are doing such a great job," then I have to be able to say, "You know what? I love working with Ottawa General Contractors. They always make sure that their trades are top of the line." That can be tough in these kinds of markets, right?
You know what? That's actually an excellent point. Okay, that's an excellent point. And the reason why I haven't had to deal with this in a while, so that's why it didn't really come top of mind. When we were dealing with the other kitchen manufacturers, oh my goodness, it was drama every day. You know, this installer went and said this to the client, went and pissed off that contractor, and everybody's pissed off, and it just created more work. So not only are you making their life easier, you're making their life more difficult. You know, like it's really easy to get to an install and completely complain about how a wall's not straight. But like if you go and say that to the client, well, you just opened up a can of worms that is not doing anybody any good, because guess what? We might now have to go reframe that wall, and now you're delayed, and your boss is going to be pissed off, and we're going to get it's going to take a lot longer for us to get paid, which means it's going to get a lot longer for you to get paid.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. This is why the business model of the big kitchen manufacturers kind of is flawed, because when you're just paying somebody minimum wage to install cabinets, they don't really care about the relationship. They don't really care about what's going on in the project. Heck, they don't even really care about the client. If anything, they might, you know, if they're miserable, misery loves company, as they say, right? And they might be down. And that's when I was telling you about that. And before we switched to the boutique cabinet maker model, we actually had a lot of headaches when it came to our kitchen manufacturers, because their installers are just creating a lot more work and nightmare situations for us. So as you were saying, giving praise to the company that hired you goes a long way, right? being able to work with other tradesmen in the same confined small space goes a long way, because if you're avoiding conflict, that means the project manager or the owner or whoever has less to deal with, right?
I was going to ask, I wonder if it would be, when I hear you say that, and when we're looking inside your mind about the problems that you deal with every day, it makes me think I should be going back and training my installers on how we talk, act, and react on any job site. I mean, you know automatically that some crews, doesn't matter what trade they are, crews show up in a uniform. And as soon as you see the uniform, what do you think of that crew?
Professional.
Yeah, thumbs up at least, right? If they haven't opened their mouth, thumbs up, right? So they got a nice clean truck, another thumbs up. But if we were to take a second and train our installers and any on-site crew and say, listen, problems are going to happen. That just happens in the industry. But the way it works here is we only speak neutrally, never negatively about any other company. So if somebody says, does that wall look horrible to you? Your answer is, I'd never looked at that. I'm going to have to go look at it after. But I'm not going to slam the framer and then slam the finish, the drywaller or the mutter and the taper. That doesn't help anything, because the next thing they're going to do is they're going to say, aren't those handles off center? Don't you need to redo all those doors? Don't you need to hang that differently? Was that space supposed to be there? And once they start complaining, the groundswell of complaints just keeps going.
Exactly. And you know what? Now that kind of leads me to think about, okay, well, hey, Ferris, it seems like you're actively promoting the small boutique cabinet makers. Well, what about me? I'm a bigger cabinet maker. I'm a bigger cabinet manufacturer, and I can't go installing cabinets. Well, then the question becomes, how do you make your installers who represent you act like owners of the company? Give that same love. Are empowered to build those relationships and really reflect on you in a positive manner. And that is a good question to have for you. And for you being the listener that is a big cabinet manufacturer, what I would do is I would build KPIs, so key performance indicators.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
That will reflect behavioral outcomes. Okay, so you've got an installer, you want the client who's a homeowner to really praise the installer. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe there's some kind of review document that the installer has to sit down and fill out with the homeowner. And every successful review results in, one KPI on the board. And if you get 5 KPIs for the month, as an example, well, you get A, B, or C.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? Time off, money, vacation, whatever. And I think that somehow you need to empower your team to work and think and produce like owners. And if you can figure that out, then you've got a successful model to scale. But, and that's just something I just thought about right now. But and that's why I decide to stay away from the big guys and just work with the smaller guys.
Well, the very fact that you talked about KPIs obviously is something I'm a big fan of, because putting systems and processes in place in a business gives predictability. And that's all we all want. We just want to know what's going to happen and what to watch for, where the big traps are and where the opportunities are, right? So KPIs, as you said, is a key performance indicator. It's just a number, a metric. It measures something. So I would expect that if I was able to come to you, and you're a general contractor, a renovator I've never dealt with before, but I was able to say, hey, here's an interesting KPI. I know you've never used us, but here's our reviews on Yelp. Here's our customer feedback scores. This is our customer satisfaction scores. This is our, whatever that key number is. You would probably be a little more willing to look at me on the next job that comes up when you've got a gap in your production schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, well, I'd be impressed because I haven't seen that. And also I'm a systems and processes kind of guy. And as we're kind of talking back and forth here, I'm trying to envision myself, okay, how would I be okay with somebody off the street coming into my office and trying to win my business? Mm-hmm. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, where you want to show them that you really do have processes in place to ensure that we have a successful client experience. And that's really what everything revolves around. When we're talking about cabinets and the installation of cabinets, is how happy and satisfied is the client, and the client being the homeowner in this case, satisfied.
Yeah.
And when the client's satisfied, then the project manager is satisfied, because he's not getting it on the other end, right? So showing that go on.
No, go ahead. Go.
Yeah, no. And to add to that, I mean, just I'd always hate to say that you're trying to pitch yourself on price, and it never should be the case. But maybe on the first go, just to show that you have what it takes to get your foot in the door with a company that could potentially produce hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue for you annually, it might be worth it for you to go and give them a break on the first one, just to show them what you got. Like companies like us, we spend in one office, 15, 20 grand a month on marketing. Okay. If you were to go and do something at cost, and as an example, and when I say at cost, I mean like all your costs and your overhead included and everything, so not just your cost of material, so you're not losing, just to show somebody that you've got something. Well, maybe you forfeited 2-3 grand worth of profit, or 4 or 5. But at the end of the day, you should chalk that up as marketing to try to get your foot in the door with somebody and blow the socks off them, and try to get yourself reoccurring revenue for the next few years to come.
Faris, you just said the magic word, recurring revenue, right? And so you touched on something we talk about in coaching all the time, which is acquisition cost versus lifetime value. So I'm not going to comment on whether somebody listening should, shortchange themselves on a deal to get a deal. But when you start to look at it from a marketing perspective, if I know that I'm going to do $30,000 cabinetry packages with you, and I spent 3 grand to get you as a client through however I did it in marketing, doesn't matter what I did. I could send you 300 bottles of wine and do the same thing. I'm going to spend 3 grand, right?
Right.
I don't know if you like wine, but there you go. Maybe you'll get some wine in the mail.
Yeah.
But I've spent, what I've done though is I've invested 3 grand into you to get a $30,000 kitchen. Now, if I recognize that you as the general contractor, the renovation contractor, are going to bring me more business, every time I do another deal, that 3 grand drops in half.
Right.
So I get one deal from you, that deal cost me 3 grand. I get 2 deals from you, that deal actually is $1,500 per deal.
Right.
I get 10 deals from you, that's $300 per deal.
Right.
Right. There's a business case behind it. And I'm certainly not telling anybody to lose their shirt on doing business with somebody. That's not the way to do business. But there is, what you said, there's a way to look at it to understand, is this a marketing expense we're looking at here to get our foot in the door to do things right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if you start looking at it that way, you might be able to start opening up some other opportunities for yourself. Yeah. But like you said, never shortchange yourself. Companies like us are willing to still work with somebody that is a higher price point, as long as the service is there and they're ready to make our lives easier.
Yep. It really is about providing the best service and not having headaches. That poor homeowner that's living through a renovation is living through something. They're tolerating this. It's a crazy world they put themselves in. It's not like a TV show.
No. It's tough, and it's very stressful. I always remind my team about the renovation cycle. It starts off really high in the honeymoon stage. We're designing fancy looking kitchens, and everybody's really happy of how it looks. And then as soon as the first deposit is given, it's downhill from there, right? a lot of money is being spent, right? Naturally, seeing that money leave your bank account is stressful. Random people are in your home. Drywall dust is being kicked everywhere, windows being broken, and you're at the ultimate low. And then towards the last part at 5%, the finish line is almost there. You can see it clear. And once you're really done, then the client's at a high again, right? So, but really, if you think about it, like cabinets, high-end millwork is really in the middle of the battle, right? And if it's not treated as an important piece, or if the right love isn't given, the professionalism, then you can get stuck in the middle of the battle.
Yeah.
Right? And being stuck in the middle of a renovation project is not fun for anybody. Everybody loses, including the homeowner.
Yeah. And the general contractor you're working with, who's really your long-term client.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, but you know what? You could be their knight in shining armor and pull them out of it. And then in a way, they're indebted to you, right? And they'll never forget about those times where you did drag them out of the dirt.
Came through for them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny, we're talking a lot here about the residential side, but for those commercial, architectural mill workers that do lots of tenant improvement projects, these same concepts hold true. It's just you're maybe not dealing directly with the general contractor, you're dealing with the project manager, and making the project manager's life easier. Just everything gets easier, right? The high points I've learned from you today is be a good communicator and be really good at servicing. We haven't talked about clean dovetail joints. We haven't talked about square plumb and level cabinet install. We haven't talked about any of that stuff. We've talked about service and being a good person to deal with.
Right. Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's the basics of just being good people, right? It's funny how that translates into business for more business.
Yeah.
And I think that, as an example, I don't come into this industry from the trades. I come into this industry as a business person, as an entrepreneur, and as a person that's really trying to figure it out. And really, as a remodeler or as a design build company, all we really do is manage relationships. I sometimes call myself the chief relationship builder, right? Because what I do is I got the relationship with the client, all my suppliers, all my contractors, engineers, and city officials. I'm all trying to get them together to accomplish this one outcome of this renovation project.
Right.
And I'm just facilitating relationships, right? Because a lot of our work is subcontracted out, right? We don't have in-house.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, even for cabinet makers, it's subcontracted out. Somebody else might be making the doors. Somebody else might be making the countertops. They might be using a subcontracted installer, which adds its own level of, you don't necessarily have control over what that subcontract installer is saying to the client on site. But we all deal with subcontractors, or we are a subcontractor at some stage of the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, then I like to keep things really simple, right? In our world, it can get really complicated, and then you just don't even really know where to start. So I keep things really simple, build those relationships and do whatever you got to do to maintain those relationships.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, Ferris, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, because you've given us a lot of great info today, and some people might want to actually pick your brain and find out other things, but how would a person go about getting in touch with you?
Yeah, you can reach me on my Instagram. I am Ferris, so that's IAMFARES. Or actually, I've got a Facebook page as well too. So it's Ferris Elsabbagh, my full name, FARES, last name ELSABBAGH.
Okay, so for those of you who are driving or maybe walking the dog and don't have a pen, paper handy, Ferris will have links to that in the show notes. So if anybody comes back to the website and then goes to the blog or the podcast link, and you scroll down, you see this interview with Ferris, then there'll be links there to link directly to you. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. You shared information with the whole woodworking community today that we're all going to take forward so that we can make our businesses better. So thank you for taking time to do that. Because you don't get a benefit from this. You're just sharing your info, right?
Yeah.
You're doing what you said.
Yeah. Hey, I'm always up for a good chat with good people.
Yeah, me too. Well, if I can help, or if anybody in our community can help, let us know as well. And Ferris, other than that, thank you so much. I've learned a lot. I've taken a ton of notes here, and I think we'll get some great feedback from this.
Beauty. Sounds good. Thanks, Dom.
All right. Thanks, Ferris. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.